Hello, this is for Palm Sunday, the 28th of March, and the reading is Mark chapter 11, verses 1 to 11. It's Jesus' entry into Jerusalem on the donkey. Perhaps lockdown's really getting to me, as one of my first thoughts when reflecting on this story was how socially distanced were the crowds, and how many were wearing masks. Ludicrous, I know, but it might just help to put ourselves in that crowd at the entrance to Jerusalem nearly 2,000 years ago. Jesus' so-called triumphal entry into Jerusalem, the city of peace, so-called, the city of David, was both a fulfilment of prophetic writings, but also a bit of a parody. It fulfills some words from the Old Testament prophet Zechariah, who wrote of a peaceful king entering Jerusalem. Triumphant and victorious is he, humble and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey. Not a great big war horse or a chariot, as King David would have entered conquered cities, or in Jesus' own day, triumphant Roman generals, and there are a fair few of those, would have done in the towns and cities of Israel and elsewhere. You don't enter a city in triumph on a donkey. It doesn't really work. But just try to put yourself in that crowd that spring day at the gates of Jerusalem. Could this really be the long-awaited Messiah? Where would you and I, where would we be in that crowd? At the front, enthusiastically throwing your cloak and cheering, that is, throwing your cashmere wool coat or whatever it may happen to be, your leather jacket or your blazer onto the dust for Jesus' donkey to trample on, hang the dirt and the expense and the cleaning costs? Or would you and I be somewhere in the middle, intrigued, excited even, but not quite committed yet? Or would we be on the edge of the crowd, near the back, our interest piqued, but not quite involved? Or right at the back, not in the crowd, but just looking and observing? What we had seen or sensed amid all the noise and excitement of that crowd? But then, would you and I have also been in that very different crowd 5 days later, on the day we now call Good Friday, yelling for Jesus to be crucified rather than hailing him as Messiah? How do we show today that Jesus is someone worth following? That his life and teaching, his comfort and challenge that he gives us, his death and rising again mean something to us and have meaning not just for us but for the whole world? How do we show that love of Christ, the servant king who touched and healed lepers and washed his own disciples' feet? How do we show that to our families, our friends, our neighbours and our village communities as this lockdown begins to ease? How do we show that Christ-like, self-giving, self-draining love? How do we come close to others but still observe our distance and keep them and ourselves safe? How close are you or I to Jesus? It's not easy to be close to the divine. I can say this for myself. Often I feel distant from him. Yet being at a distance isn't always wrong. When Jesus was crucified, his male disciples ran away, but the braver, more loyal women stayed watching from a distance as he died on the cross. Only Mary, his mother, and the unnamed beloved disciple are recorded as being at the foot of the cross. It's far from easy to be close to God. It's not an easy thing. But God in his Son Jesus Christ always wants to draw close to us. God is the one person, even in a pandemic, who can be closer to us than we are to ourselves and who knows us better than we know ourselves. May God, in his crucified and risen Son, be with you this Holy Week, this Easter, and beyond in the weeks and months ahead. Amen.